Now I would like to introduce our guests and the speakers. So we have this chairperson who is Professor Lakshmi Narayan Raut. So Professor Lakshmi Narayan Raut formerly got superannuated from the Department of History, Berhampur University. He had his master's as well as his PhD from Berhampur University as well. Professor Raut, to his credit, has the following academic honors, like the Visiting Associateship at the Center for Historical Studies, JNU, New Delhi, the DAAD Fellowship, Bonn, Germany. He was also the Visiting Fellow at Kiel University, Kiel, then South Asia Institute for the Heidelberg University, Germany. He has also been a part of the Indo-French Exchange Program of Social Scientists of UGC. Visiting fellow at the Maison des Sciences de Home, Paris, France, and the Baden-Württemberg Fellow, South Asia Institute, University of Heidelberg, Germany. And he has given several academic visits to Freie Universität, which is in Berlin, Germany. And lastly, to the International Institute for Asian Studies, Leiden as well, which is in Netherlands, and to several other universities like the British Academy or the London University of London or the University of Canada. Now, his important published works include the books titled The Socio-Economic Life in Medieval Odisha, which is from the period 1568 to 1751, and also another book which is The Concept of Health, Hygiene and Medicines, a study on the Kond community of South Odisha, which was published in 2014. He has authored several articles which are published in various national and international journals as well. And he has also edited several books, and he has been a part of several proceedings as well. He also edited the National Journal captioned Studies in History and Culture. About 20 issues were brought out. Then for the speakers, we have the first speaker, Professor Alok Shrotriya. For this plenary session, he's the first speaker, and he is currently serving as the Director, Academic and Research, Dean of Faculty of Social Sciences, and the head of Ancient Indian History, Culture and Archaeology in the Indira Gandhi National Tribal University, which is in Amarkantak, Madhya Pradesh. He has carried out several explorations of Indian and Chinese sites of historical and archaeological interest, and he has brought to light variegated material pertaining to art, architecture, and archaeology. His most recent book is entitled Buddhist Architecture in China, and it elucidates origin and development and the ramification of Chinese architectural edifices. Then he has also written another book which is entitled Atit, Manav or Purvashesh, which divulges various aspects of archaeology related to antiquities, site formation, and public awareness. He was awarded the Chinese Government Scholarship 2005-2006 for the study of Buddhist architecture in China. Then we have the next speaker is Andrew J. Wesley Sir, who is Professor Emeritus, Dalton State University, System of Georgia, USA. His research in this particular area is of great importance, and we are eagerly waiting to hear from him, but he would be joining us virtually. The next speaker is Dr. Sunil Kumar Patnaik sir, who is working as the senior archaeologist since the year 2010 in the Odisha Institute of Maritime and Southeast Asian Studies. Then he has done his PhD in archaeology and tourism and has been involved in a number of projects like the World Heritage Matters, World Bank sponsored conservation of coastal monuments, conservation of Buddhist heritage sites, and the development of heritage tourism destination of places like Puri, Konark, then Languri, Radhanagar, etc. He is attached to many Buddhist organizations of India and Sri Lanka, and he has been the convener of the International Buddhist Enclave for the third time. Presently, he is working on archaeology of Buddhist monuments in Southeast Asia, in Southeast India and Southeast Asia, and also on sustainable cultural tourism in South Asia. Last but last but not the least, we have Dr. Nishamani Kaur sir, who is also who is a senior consultant in the Bharatiya Bhasha Samiti, Ministry of Education, Government of India, New Delhi, and he has done tremendous work in this particular aspect, and it would be a delight for us to hear him speak as well. Now, I would like to give a short introduction about the theme, which is broadly about literature, folklore, monuments, sports, etc., as evidence of cultural linkages. Then we have archaeological excavations and findings as the evidence of commercial relations. Now, as we know that the composite character of Southeast Asian culture resulted from a diachronic interaction with India over a long period of time. India had commercial as well as cultural contacts with her neighbors, the surrounding Southeast Asian countries, which consequently lead to the extension of Indian cultural traits to foreign countries. Indian language, the literature, the art, the architecture, traditions, beliefs, all these were transmitted, and hence there was a cultural dissemination from India to Southeast Asia, as we have been discussing that since morning. Indian culture was diffused through the autochthonous societies of Southeast Asia, whose material base was that of such standard that it could assimilate elements of that particular culture. Southeast Asia has preserved for many years. Now, traces of India's past are found in obviously its customs, the religious life, and the monuments of Southeast Asia. Thus, through these historical findings, these archaeological excavations, and the explorations, it is pertinent that we will find some kind of cultural evidence as well as the evidence of commercial relations with India and Southeast Asia. So now we'll start with the plenary session. I would now request Professor Lakshmi Narayan Raut, who is the chairperson of this particular session, to begin with his opening remarks.
At the outset, let me thank the organizers of this international conference for unexpectedly asking me to chair a session. In fact, I am on my way to Fakir-Mohan University, Baleshwar, and I wanted to be here for one day, at least enjoy the session. So I wanted to be a listener, not a speaker, or not to be a chairperson. Anyway, since my good friend, Professor Chandinand, wanted me to offer his chair, I couldn't say no. I accepted it. Having accepted it, I think let me not stand between you and the presenters. After the presentation, I will share some of my views because my field of specialization is medieval Indian history, but everything is going on ancient Indian history, culture, all these things are there. Therefore, I will have my ideas at the end of the session. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now we will like to begin with the plenary session with the first speaker, who is Professor Alok Kshotriya.
Respected chairperson of the session, Professor Lakshmi Narayan Raut ji, respected Dr. Nishamani Kaur ji, my fellow speaker, respected Professor Sunil Kumar Patnaik ji, respected Professor Andrew Voske from Georgia, who will join us through online medium, and also Dr. Aditi Khuntia, who is moderating the session, and the scholars present here, students, faculty members, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, it is a matter of great pleasure that nowadays we are thinking about the Indian history, placing India in the center. Indianized studies are being done nowadays, and we are not thinking that the someone has invaded India or history has been changed, but nowadays India is in the center and we are looking भारत केंद्रित इतिहास। इस अर्थ में देखें तो दक्षिण पूर्वी एशियाई देशों के साथ हमारे संबंध प्राचीन काल से लेकर अब तक किन अर्थों में विकसित हुए, इन द फॉर्म ऑफ टेंजिबल रिसोर्सेज एंड इंटेंजिबल रिसोर्सेज, इन द form of art and architecture, scriptures, folklore, traditions, what the connection are, proving the context between India and Southeast Asia. So this is a very relevant topic in the seminar, and we are discussing on the linkages between Southeast Asia and India. And I am very happy to share that the organizers have published a document, Kaling and Southeast Asia, the Civilization Linkages, on this occasion of this seminar. And the complete papers have been published by the organizers. I would like to congratulate from this dais. One thing I have to discuss here, as Aditi has introduced, that I have worked on China basically, Buddhist architecture of China. My one book is there. So I have not worked on this another pagodas of Southeast Asian countries, but there is cultural exchanges are there, cultural linkages are there, and basic idea of stup is always there in all the pagodas or dagabas, whatever it may be. So I got an opportunity when I was in China in 2005 and 2005-6-7. I got an opportunity to touch the Myanmar border from Chinese side. I was in Yunnan province of China at that time, and I got an opportunity to see the Sichuan-Panna province. That is an autonomous region of China. So I got an opportunity to see the Sichuan-Panna also. In Sichuan-Panna region, the stupas and pagodas are in the similar style which are found in the Myanmar region. As we are discussing today, and in the morning also, former VC sir has pointed out that the periphery and the area of the Kaling was different, what we think today. This is our linguistic boundaries. Now the Odisha has been made and Bengal has been made. But earlier, the Tamralipti was a part of Kaling. There was a clear connection with the Suvarna Bhumi. Several Jatak stories are there, Buddhist literary evidences are there, that there was a linkage between Kaling and Myanmar too. So I got an opportunity to see those pagodas. I have not worked on the Burmese pagoda particularly, but in the study of the Chinese architecture, I got this opportunity to see this Burmese pagoda too. Our university has a regional center in Manipur, and Manipur also shares from More to Tamo. There is a border between Myanmar and India. So when I was in Manipur in my regional center, Manipur Indira Gandhi National Tribal University Center, so I got an opportunity to cross the border from India side too. And I entered in the Myanmar and see More region. Some Buddhist temples are there, some Buddhist pagodas are there. So from Chinese side and from Indian side, both the border stupas I have seen. And in the study, then I come across several books on the Burmese pagodas. So because the linkage between the Southeast Asia and Kalinga we are discussing today. So I am not discussing about the Chinese or other architecture details, but what little bit I got an opportunity to see pagodas of Myanmar, I will discuss here. Exploring the architectural transitions, कैसे इंडिया के स्तूप से बर्मा के अंदर म्यांमार में पैगोडा विकसित हुए, हाउ द पैगोडाज हैव बीन डेवलप्ड फ्रॉम द प्रोटोटाइप ऑफ स्तूप. दिस इज ए humble endeavor I have made here. So first of all, when we see about the Kaling or Southeast Asia connections, since morning we are discussing about the linkages, literary evidences are there, and this session is based on the tangible and intangible evidences which are available through archaeology, folklore, traditions, literature, scriptures. So whatever we are gathering the information from these texts, we have a clear connection from the Kaling to Myanmar. जहाँ तक स्टोरीज में मिल रहा है, earlier it is said that before Ashok there was a linkage between Kaling and Myanmar, and also Suvarna Bhumi was known to us. सुवर्ण भूमि की खोज में, सुवर्ण की खोज में सुवर्ण भूमि हो चाहे सुवर्ण द्वीप हो, जावा, सुमात्रा, बाली, बोर्नियो की बात करें, हम सियाम की बात करें, सब के बारे में हमें कहीं न कहीं प्रॉस्पेरिटी के लिए मर्चेंट्स का जाना हो, मिशनरीज का जाना हो, या बुद्धिस्ट एमिसरीज हों, these all the connections have made some close contacts with Kaling and Southeast Asia. So it is also evident that Kaling has a connection with Myanmar too. So it is an endeavor to showcase here about the connections between the India and Myanmar with a special reference to Kaling, and also the development of the architecture which has taken place inside the Myanmar region. So first of all, when we see about stupa, we have a idea of our Sanchi stup, hemispherical dome with the railings outside, Toran Dwar, gateways are there in the four cardinal directions, and also Chhatra Yashti, pinnacle is there. So this is the idea of Indian stup. In Mahaparinibbana Sutra, Buddha himself told that जहाँ पर चार रास्ते मिलते हैं, the crossroad, you have to erect the stup. This is not a tradition of Buddhism. In the Rig Veda also we find about the चैत्य भूमि, चिता भूमि और स्तूप या राख की ढेरी के उल्लेख हमको मिल जाते हैं. So in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, Buddha himself told that if you want to venerate about myself, you have to create थूप. पाली में उन्होंने कहा कि थूप कम कीजिए, थूप कम करने की आवश्यकता है. You have to erect the stupas on the crossroads. हम सब जानते हैं कि बुद्ध की मृत्यु के पश्चात जो 8 मुख्य स्तूप बनाए गए, नवा स्तूप जिस पंडित के पास में जो कलश था उसके ऊपर बनाया गया. So it was the story we know from the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. But overseas trade, maritime activities, which has been discussed in the earlier session, location of Kaling was very prominent in this connection and linkages, missionaries, Buddhism. अब आप इसमें देखिए जो मुख्य चीज थी, there was no complex of superiority in the emissaries going to the Southeast Asia. And no one was superior, no one was inferior, it was not the case. But the adaptability was there. They have also taken the religion inside their country. In China, if we want to see, ancestor worship was there. In the Southeast Asian countries, if we'll see in the Java, Sumatra, बाली, बोर्नियो की बात करें, सियाम देश की बात करें, सभी में एक तरह की एडॉप्टेबिलिटी थी. बिकॉज ऑफ दैट एडॉप्टेबिलिटी, merchants are going, Buddhist emissaries are going, and some political contacts were also being reported. Then local elements have been assimilated in the art and architecture. जो लोकल एलिमेंट्स थे उनको समय समय पे अलग अलग समय किस तरह से चेंजेस हुए, इवन इन नॉर्थ इंडियन स्तूपास and South Indian stupas, we will find the differences in the shapes and size. सांची के स्तूप को आप देखेंगे, उसके बाद अमरावती के स्तूप को देखेंगे. And if we want to see the other stupas of Nagarjunikonda also, we will find the similarities as well as some differences in the style and architecture. So what we can expect in the foreign countries? They have also taken those elements and adopted as per the local style, local architecture and local tradition. It is also evident in China, where I worked for 3 years. In China, is pavilion architecture was prevalent. So when the stupa architecture went inside the mainland China, in the Ming dynasty and Qing dynasty also, and in the at the time of Shi Huangdi, they have taken it and made a White Horse monastery there. So from the pavilion architecture, they have made pagoda architecture. In Myanmar, in Sri Lanka, in Java, Sumatra, Borobudur, Cambodia, जहाँ की भी हम बात करें, there are several. वो अभी पिक्चर रहने दीजिए जिस पे आपको स्तूपास दिखाए गए हैं. हाँ, और पहले चलिए. ये सांची स्तूप का जो हमारा चित्र है, ये it is the earliest form from we derived the architectural details of a stupa architecture. So it is evident there in the Sanchi. And what I was discussing about, when we see the Southeast Asian countries, there is adaptations are there, local elements have been assimilated in the art and architecture. In this assimilation with cultural values and traits have been assimilated, there was no dominance of the power. It is evident that political patronage was there. That is why it has been flourished in the country. In China also, in Cambodia also, in Angkor Wat and Borobudur, everywhere we will see some political patronage, and the Buddhism has flourished in it. In Myanmar itself, in the 1056 AD, when the state religion has been announced as Buddhism, so many pagodas have been erected, Buddhist temples have been erected in Myanmar. So political patronage has a pivotal role in the spread of the art and architecture in the region. But the people has also taken them positively, and assimilation and local adaptations can be seen in the architectural form of the pagoda architecture. Interaction society consists of both the civilization context. A.P. पटनायक सर ने बहुत इसके बारे में लिखा है, जिसको मैंने संदर्भित कई जगह किया है. And the connection with the Kaling we are discussing since morning. So we have found the Kunlun, orang cleaning. चाइनीज़ में कुनलुन मिल रहा है हमको, जो कलिंग के पीपल के इंटरेक्शन को बताने वाला है. इंडियन इमिग्रेंट्स इन मलाया आर्चिपेलागो में आप देखेंगे ओरांग क्लीनिंग. पीपल ऑफ ओरांग क्लीनिंग हैव बीन आइडेंटिफाइड एज द पीपल ऑफ कलिंग देश. दैट इज व्हाई द क्लोज कनेक्शन विथ कलिंग. ताम्रलिप्ति वाज अ वेरी फेमस पोर्ट, and other ports were also there. Srila Tripati has pointed out in his presentation, so the repetition is not needed here. In Indianization, expansion of Indian culture, we can see in the kingdoms of Cambodia, Champa, Java, Sumatra, Bali, Borneo, Indonesia, Malaya archipelago, and finally Burmese and Thai kingdoms. ये इमिग्रेशन है जो ट्रेड कॉमर्स से चला. रिलीजन के कारण बुद्धिज्म वाज ए प्रोमिनेंट रिलीजन विच हैव कंट्रीब्यूटेड अ लॉट. रिलीजियस कम्युनिकेशंस patronized by the court, and what these religious activity have been adopted by the kings. When we see in the China and in the Southeast Asia, if the earlier tradition was coming and dynasty has been changed, they have taken Buddhism as a new faith. Buddhism and Indian religions are giving the king as a supremacy like a god. If you have a power of God, then subjects are obeying your all the orders and examples. So in the China itself, when the tribal kings have come to the power in the Yunnan province and the other province of Kansu, they have adopted Buddhism. In the same manner, Buddhism has been adopted. और भारत में जो राजत्व की दैवीय अवधारणा थी, the divinity power of the kingship, it has attracted, it has given an attraction towards the foreign kings too, and they have adopted this religion, and they have got the supremacy and the blessings of the god. He may be Buddha, Vishnu, Shiv, Durga, or any other religious faith. So it was also a reason that why the kings have adopted these religions in their kingdom. So whenever the dynasties change are there, they are accepting the another religion. It is a matter which has to be studied by the young scholars in their studies, that why the political patronage is given to one sect to the another after the change of dynasties. So it is there. So assimilation of local cult was there, religion and art style has been changed. And also, if we have seen the Kling, Kaling art studies and Burma, Malaysia, Sichuan, Panna, and Stupa architecture, early Buddhist influence is the architecture which has been seen in the Sanchi Stupa. Here, what we are seeing, the Stupa architecture, you can see a hemispherical dome, which is the part known as under. Another is 4 gateways can be seen. Vedika is visible. Harmika Vedika is there. Chhatra Yashti, Chhatra, और अशोकन पिलर भी यहाँ पे आपको दिखाई दे रहा है, 4 gateways दिखाई दे रहे हैं. This is the traditional one which has been taken by the artist inside the other countries. What are the changes? In the book of Percy Brown, you can get this picture. Next one. So what are the changes in the stupa architecture? Various form of stupa you can see. अलग अलग सांची के स्तूप में अमरावती, कार्ले, अजंता, इसके बाद आप देखेंगे तो चोरटेंस हैं, बोरोबुदूर में हैं, म्यांमार. What are the changes? Bell-shaped stupas have been erected in the Myanmar region. This was the thing. I have very so it has been given in the book, and you can get an idea about the stupa architecture in the Myanmar region. As Dr. Sil Tripathi has discussed earlier, that if we want to see the linkages, we have to rely on the archaeological evidences. From Vietnam, we found the pottery, and Kalong, Indonesia, and OCEO from Vietnam and Champa. So pottery types are there to establish the linkages. And as far as pagoda is concerned, from where this word pagoda has come, हम तो जानते हैं कि शब्द है स्तूप. स्तूप से आखिर ये pagoda कैसे बन गया? How this has been converted in the word pagoda? So several theories are there. How this pagoda has been created. Next one, please. Nomenclature. If we want to see about the nomenclature, okay sir, okay, I will finish. Nomenclature में आप देखें, the Buddhist relics have been enshrined in the stupa, basically. So धातु गर्भ से बना, कुछ लोग बताते हैं दगब. In Sri Lanka, it is called dagoba. Dagoba was the word maybe derived from the धातु गर्भ. और दगोबा को आप देखें, चाइनीज में बी का उच्चारण पी करते हैं, जर्मन्स में भी करते हैं वो. तो पैगोडा, अब दगोबा का जब इंटरपोजिशन देखेंगे वर्ड्स का तो पैगोडा बन जाता है. सो वन थियरी इज दैट फ्रॉम द दगोबा द वर्ड पैगोडा हैज बीन क्रिएटेड. When you will write from left to right, right to left in the different scripts, it will be the transposition of the word. So it is evident here. And one theory is that Buddha was called Bhagavat or Bhante. Bhagavate or Bhagavan. It is possible that structure, which was symbolic representation of Buddha himself, was said as Bhagavata and later on distorted in Bhagavata, pagoda. So it is also a theory that the word pagoda has been developed. This word is used only by the foreigners for the polygonal towers and not by Chinese. चाइना में इसको था कहते हैं, TA. एक अर्थ का साइन होता है, पिक्चर होता है, उसके ऊपर दो साइन लगते हैं, उसको था वहाँ कहा जाता है. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. अध्यक्ष जी का निर्देश हुआ है तो 5 मिनट में समाप्ति करना है. और बहुत डिटेल में मैंने इसमें पूरी दिया है, जो किताब ऑर्गेनाइजर्स ने पब्लिश कर दी है. तो ये पेगोडास के ऊपर, बर्मीज पेगोडास के ऊपर मैंने लिखने का प्रयास किया है. नेक्स्ट देखें, द पिक्चर ऑफ सांची स्तूप इज देयर. सो यू कैन सी द हेमीस्फेरिकल डोम, तोरण द्वाराज आर देयर, हर्मिका, छत्र यष्टि, छत्रावली इज देयर. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. नेक्स्ट. Cultural exchanges I have already discussed and some of the books have been quoted here. Next. Kingdom of patronage of Buddhism in the pagan kingdom flourished in the 9th to 12th, 13th century. Myanmar played a pivotal role in the spread and patronage of Buddhism. Next. This is the temple I have visited from the Indian side. It is in More. The Tamo border is there from the Manipur. Passport is not needed to enter in the Myanmar, but presently the situation is worse. But we can visit from India only on the basis of our Aadhaar card. So I visited More in 2019 and I took these pictures. This is a temple in the More Tamu border, India Myanmar. Next. This is the temple gate in the More. And Suvarna Bhumi naam jo tha, nowadays also they have a painted golden color in the pagodas as well as in the temples. So the reflection is still visible in the pagodas and the temple of Buddhist faith. Next please. This is the temple gate. Next. This pagoda can be seen and it is it representing the architecture of Myanmar region and how the stupa has been converted in the Myanmar region in the bell-shaped stupa. Chhatra Yashti may be seen here and pagoda in Buddhist temple More, Tamu border, India, Myanmar. Next, this is the temple gate. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. Sunil Kumar Patnaik, sir, to give his lecture on the theme.
Namaskar, good evening. It is a privilege on my part and an opportunity that Professor Padi has invited me and given a chance to speak, to share some of our experiences, some of our work we have carried out on the East Coast in the last decades. Respected Chairman of this session, Professor Ellen Raut, my teacher, Professor Alok, Professor Karasar, and all the dignitaries. One of my teacher is also Professor Ami Patnaik, Professor Nanda sir, all the delegates and scholars. Really, this is an opportunity, very good opportunity. We are trying to organize such a conference in Odisha, but we failed. But I am very much thankful to IIM that they have tried and organized successfully. because this is a area of South Asian studies and cultural linkage. It is a multidisciplinary study. It is not only concerned with history or archaeology or Odia or literature. It requires science, and it's a conglomeration of all the scholars. So after all, we have an opportunity to share and debate what is going on in the Southeast Asian studies now in India and world. In Indian context, I have been participating in a number of conferences in India in relating Southeast Asia. Everywhere, almost all the scholars, they are having good papers and discussions about Cholo, about the Bengal, about the Telangana coast. But everybody is leaving or left out the Kalingan coast. Even very good scholars in India, very renowned scholars, they have written very good books on Ashoka, on trade routes, on maritime studies, Walters from Southeast Asia, in Indian context, IDK, and a number of scholars. They come up to Tamlipti, and they went back again to Pumpuhar or this Arikamedu. But they leave from Tamlipti to Arikamedu, the Kalingan area. But we have, fortunately, lot more information in the form of literature, and the Greater India Society, which was founded in 1920, all the journals, I have all the journals, 32 journals I have, they have mentioned out and out about the Kalinga and its like R.C. Mujumdar's theory, H.B. Sarkar's theory, out and out they mentioned about the Kalinga. But that need have to validate it with archaeological evidences or material evidences. Fortunately, up to 1990, we didn't have any kind of archaeological sources regarding our ocean venture and Indian Ocean venture. Fortunately, series of archaeological excavation has been conducted, organized, undertaken by Archaeological Survey of India, myself, my institute, Government of Odisha, and all the universities, Utkal University, Ravenshaw University, which I am also part of all these excavations. And after 10 years, 15 years, now we are able to know something about Odishan past in material culture. About, Odishan past. See, in the morning session, it was discussion about the rice. Here, from this is Durga Devi excavation, we got rice dated in Beta Laboratory, USA. We got the date of rice in 1350 BC. That is domestic rice used by the Odia people. And that is proved again from Swabari here in Bhubaneswar, near Bhubaneswar, and that is also Bhartiuda and Deltiuda. So now, the use of rice, domesticated rice, used by the people of Odisha, dated to 1350 BC. That is proved from these sides. Again, afterwards, we have Iron Age. The use of iron, of course, we are little late in Indian context. Our iron is dated to 800 BC. And after that, soon after Iron Age, 800 BC, towards 4th, 5th century BC, we have the urban centers. It is strange. If you travel from Ganga, lower Ganga to Godavari, every 15-10 kilometers, you will find either Buddhist site or urban site. That knowledge only we got only recently. How urbanization developed? Urbanization developed means everything developed. Religion, rise, intellectual mass, knowledge, and venture. That is one of the most important knowledge we are getting right now from Odishan coast. And afterwards, my area of today's discussion is just only 2 points. One is the maritime Silk Route, and another is Great Circle of Buddha. That is the two the hypothesis is going on in Indian context right now. In Motion project by Government of India and Silas Institute also, that Lothal museum, coming up museum, Maritime Museum, I am also curatorial member there. So the trend is going on that we have to correlate with Maritime Silk Route and another Great Circle of Buddha. That happened in 1st century BC AD and another in 7th century, 8th century AD. In both the sphere, Odisha had a major role. And that all comes from our excavated sites, from Buddhist sites only. See, I just have a glimpse of the excavated sites. Look at Chandraketu in West Bengal. Chandraketu is the headquarter of of Mauryan period, Chandragupta Maurya, and now it is in just little away, 24 kilometers from Calcutta, and towards down, Tamlipti is there. That is the major port. And coming down from Tamlipti till Chennai, Arikamedu, we have series of Buddhist sites every 10-15 kilometers. Out of that, there are so many major Buddhist sites developed, having stupas, having chaityas, monasteries, images, mandalas, inscriptions, all that. But the interesting part is, all the Buddhist sites are developed in a cluster baked with a port site. There must be a port site in around a Buddhist site, if it is developed in a bigger way. That study has been taken up from Ganga to Godavari or up to Kaveri river, because Tamil Nadu government and Odisha government, we are working on that. So by the way, we are getting all the maritime evidences from Chandraketu, because that is just a border of Odisha right now. Then Tamlipti. These are the ceilings, boat ceiling, and torpedo jar, and this is the Chandraketu side, and below one is the Tamlipti side. And nearby, there is another site is called Mogolmari. Mogolmari is just above, bordering to Jaleshwar. It was in Odisha earlier, just bordering 5 kilometers from Jaleshwar. That recently West Bengal government has taken up excavation, and they found this boat ceiling. And everybody was thinking before that it was a Mughal related to some war, Mughal war, something like that. But Mogolmari is having something else, and it goes to 2nd century AD right now. And coming down again, this is Radhanagar. I have excavated it, and this is the Mauryan structure. Ashoka built during this structure was built during the Mauryan period. And this is the Sadabu Tissa. This is a very good evidence. Sadabu Tissa happened to be a very good, monk, Buddhist monk. Or it may be also conjecture that the Sri Lankan delegation came and met to Ashoka. One Tissa was there, maybe. And this is Devaya Nagara. This seal is Devaya Nagara, and that is Vijaya. So all these are the opening book of Odishan history, just a preface of Odishan history. And again, another is Lambudi. All these are datable to 2nd century AD, 1st century BC. Here, emergence of Buddha image also depicted. Emergence of Buddha in India. In India, Buddha image emerged around 1st century AD or BC during Kushan period. At the same time, we have a Buddha image here. That is also we are taking to all in the pan-Indian context. And these are the major Buddhist sites. And look at the relic caskets. This is the casket where we get a relic from Lalitgir site. It was excavated during 90s. This is the Udaygiri. This is stupa of Udaygiri, 8th century, but Udaygiri is, the date of site is 1st century, 13th century BC. And this is the Mandala stupa. This Mandala stupa, scholars think, might be the base of stupa of Borbadur, because Borbadur stupa has been 4 galleries, and all depend on the mandala and on the basis of Gandavya. Here it is the Gandavya stupa, here we have written. This is again is the mandala stupa. And all mandala, Amitabh mandala, Aksheva mandala, we are getting from here. That is one of the great sites, Udaygiri. And this is Ratnagiri. Here Ratnagiri is having a most important because it is a Vajrayana center. And Gandavya might have written here. And one of our ruler, Bhaumakara ruler, Subhakar Singh, it is written, how far it is, I don't know, but it is all scholars accepted. That Gandavya or Avatamasa Sutra is written in Ratnagiri Mahavihara, and he all the way went to China, presented to Chinese Emperor Taisang in 8th century AD. And this is the Ratnagiri Mahavihara. And again coming down to Mahanadi, across Mahanadi, these are the sites not yet excavated but documented. But again it connected towards central India. And again coming down to coastal area, this is Dhauli. Everybody might be knowing Dhauli Ashokan edict and Dhauli Stupa and the elephant, 3rd century BC elephant. Just near Dhauli, across the river Daya, we have excavated recently this stupa. This is the Aragad stupa, and it is around 1,000 feet above the hillock, and recently we have excavated. Look at this stupa, it is a very early stupa, and having railings. Nowhere in Odisha found railings, plain railing, and it must belong to 3rd century BC. It's Aragad, here in Bhubaneswar, nearby Bhubaneswar. Yeah. Then again, little down, it is Salihundam and backed by Kalingapatna. This Salihundam stupa, again, Salihundam site, it is known as Sarle Petika or rice hill, hill of rice, hill of rice. It is said, inscriptions are there. Earlier it was there in Kalinga. It is very much in Kalinga because it is in Bansadhara river. And it is a very huge site, belong to 2nd century, 1st century BC to 3rd century BC to 3rd century CE. Massive development, and this is the history of Kalinga. If you read this, one side can speak 10 volumes of history of Kalinga. This much material is there. I just suggest to the youngsters, take up research project on that, because Andhra people, they thought, I interacted with Andhra scholars also, I am working with them too. Now Phangiri is the excavation going on, I am also part of that. They say it is a Kalinga site, Kalinga people should do. If I ask Kalinga people, it is an Andhra site, they should do. No much work has done on this site. I have documented everything. If somebody come voluntarily, I will give at least 5 PhDs can be done on this site. And this is again near Thatalko, this is Vishakhapatna. Again, Vishakhapatna is also in Kalinga. Thatlakonda, this is Thatlakonda, recently discovered. Recently means by chance discovery, discovered by the army people. And Andhra government has taken a lot of care. They have conserved everything. Lot of Satavahan coins, lot of trade materials, and it was a port. Bimilipatnam, it was an ancient port again. Kulatunga Cholo, in 10th century AD, he rebuilt this port. Before that, Kalinga people, Kalingan kings, they used this port. And again, beyond that, this is Bijanukonda again, and we are reaching to Guntupalli. This is in West Godavari district. So if you walk down through the east coast up to Godavari, then again Nagarjunakonda, Amaravati, then many more sites are there of Telangana and Tamil Nadu, many, and up to Karnataka. Actually, from Karnataka Kolar coal mine to Magadhan Empire during Ashoka time, actually this is the route. And we have given a nomenclature, that's a Purbya Patha in Indian, this is the trade spots. This is a trading, sites. Sumatra, it is not much time is there. This is Silk Route. It is connected to Central Asia, Bamia, you must have known Bamiyan Buddha. China, it is connected to China and is coming down to Tamlipti, then come down to south and Mudris in Kerala. And again it goes on western side, Sopara and all that. So this is the Silk Route, and one route goes to Southeast Asia. And this is again called Great Circle of Buddha. It happened in Buddhism only. Everywhere Buddhist side and Buddhist culture was flowing. Hinayana, Theravada, Mahayana and Vajrayana, both. So this is the Great Circle of Buddha, and this is the Purviya Patha. Almost, I can say, almost all the scholars of India so far research, very big scholars, they left out this, we have joined with Buddhist side, Purviya Patha. And one more thing, who built all these sites? Who have taken care of all these sites? No king has given, no, we don't have any inscription. No king has built a Buddhist site in Odisha, except Suhakar Singh in Bhaumakar period. But right from days of Kalinga, Ashoka, in post-Ashokan period, when Buddhism purported in Southeast Asia, it is sure it is migrated from this land of Kalinga. Kalinga is the torch bearer for Southeast Asia. Now it is coming to limelight because of all these sites. We have Buddha images, we have emergence of Buddha image, first Buddha image in India. We have terracotta image, we have inscriptions. And Kalinga, what is opposing the strength of Kalinga is the torch bearer. Kalinga is played a major role spreading Buddhism to whole of Southeast Asia by a trade and by a cultural interaction. There are all these sites, these are the evidences. What Sila Tirupati, this is the Manikapatna site. We have all the foreign materials. Indonesian terracotta we have, we found from Manikapatna. Khorosti inscription, this is the Khorosti inscription, it comes from Central Asia. Because Central Asian people, they use this kind of, we got it from near Puri. And this is Indonesian bronze. We got from Puri only, near Puri. This is amphora, Roman trade people, they were using it. So these are Ceylonese coin, Chinese coin. And these are the foreign elements. These are the foreign Roman burla. This is the Mongolian style lion. They are related ware, caltrop. All these materials, it speaks itself about our foreign contact, about our rich culture, heritage. And this is from Naraz, boat thing. And these are all temple depiction. Boats are depicted in temple walls and palm leaves. And this is the Tara image. It was worshipped by the traders as a savior goddesses. But in Western India, Avalokiteshwar is being worshipped as a savior god. And it is very popular in Southeast Asia, particularly Java. And this is the site I want to present this thing. This is the Sailadhava kingdom. It is called Kangodo. Sailadhavas is a very major dynasty. They ruled about 200 years. After 200 years, they vanished because there is three major wars: Harshavardhana, then Chalukya, Pulakeshin II, and Shashanka. They attacked this kingdom. It is said they just vanished they become silent in Java. There is a theory. And most of the scholars, they have written many things about that. And these are the ports. These are the ports and the connecting our link. This is how maritime Silk Route was going on there. Palur, Kalingapatna, Tamlipti, Arikamedu, all these things. And this is how Mahayana went from this Kalinga area and it blossomed in Java, then Sri Lanka. First Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is the hub. From Sri Lanka, Thailand, it went to Thailand and it went to all the Southeast Asian. This is Cambodia. Cambodia, if you go Cambodia and see, this is you will feel a Odia culture is there reflected in the walls, Cambodian walls. I have seen and I have took the picture there. See, this is Borbadu and this is Loi Kothung. This is just like Bali Yatra. Our Bali Yatra, it is in Thailand. It is in Bangkok. It celebrates every year during the same time. Just day before and Kartika Purnima, our Kartika Purnima. This is the trading route. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we have Dr. Nishamani Kaur, sir.
शुभ संध्या बंधुगण दिनर शेष वक्ता हवाटा सौभाग्य कि दुर्भाग्य ता मु जाने ना बट फॉर मी दिस इज एन अप्रोच अवॉइडेंस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट व्हाट इज अप्रोच अवॉइडेंस कॉन्फ्लिक्ट यू गेट अट्रैक्टेड एंड एट द सेम टाइम you get distracted. I face the similar situation. Anyway, with this, Chairman Sir, my dear colleagues and co-speakers on the stage, Aditi, and delegates and scholars in the auditorium. Friends, first of all, I admit my gratitude to Professor Padhi for giving me this opportunity and involving me in most of his academic activities. All through the day, you have listened to so many data, so many things, information, and you all are tired of it, because I am also equally tired. But what to do? I assure you, I won't bore you. You won't have an iota of boredom. I'll be very limited, focused, because my years in defense, because I was in National Defense Academy before joining Bharatiya Bhasha Samiti, has taught us to be pinpointed and focused. Friends, I was talking about approach avoidance conflict. Similar might have been the conflict when the Indian Sadhavas, Kalinga Sadhavas might have gone there. The inhabitants, let me not call them citizens, the milieu is the right word, Professor Nanda can tell me, the milieu of Southeast Asia might have got that approach avoidance conflict. They might have been attracted, and at the same time, they might have been distracted. And friends, remember, whenever one faces such a situation, there is the scope for creativity. With this, again, I'm reminded of T.S. Eliot, the modern English poet. Let me quote a couple of lines. Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we have lost in information? So we have lost everything in information. Forget about wisdom and knowledge. But thank God, Professor Padhi has created an occasion to explore the nuances of knowledge and even wisdom. So friends, I'll concentrate on culture, because so much of architecture, so much of stupas and all these things. So let us concentrate on culture. After all, let us ask ourselves, what is culture? It's a very typical question. And this term culture has been often used, rather misused, and very often abused, because nobody really goes deep into the nuances of culture. For me, culture is shared beliefs, values, customs, the inner things. And whereas civilization speaks about the outer things. It pertains to organized social and political structures. Our situation is, this Kalinga situation is such, we have both the civilizational input, and at the same time, we are very culturally rich. Therefore, I am proud of belonging to this land. This is really, this has a meaningful cultural heritage. And again, have you marked a typical thing? We are in Kalinga Institute discussing about Kalinga's contribution to Southeast Asia. See, it may be a question of chance. So in Kalinga Institute, we are discussing about Kalinga's contribution, and we are having number of friends from Southeast Asia. Anyway, coming to culture again, Rajgopalachari, he has a book called Our Culture. In that book, he defines culture as the habit of successful self-control. He tells that culture is the third dimension. When the need of the body and mind are met, then the question of culture comes in. And that is how now we'll go to explore the cultural linkages. How are they established? First, cultural interaction, then cultural appreciation, then appropriation. So 3 stages. Opening stage is interaction. Then within that interaction, there must be appreciation. And once that appreciation is there, there will be appropriation. And at times also, it is conditioned by the need. I can give you one example. When there was COVID, we were asked to maintain distance, no question of shaking hands, minimum distance, and everybody started greeting with namaskar, and now in Western countries, you see, they have adopted it. They have adopted it. This is a cultural adaptation. Namaskar. No more shaking hands, hi, hello, all these things have gone. No hugging, only namaskar, maintaining the distance. So this is cultural appropriation. And what is social change? Society is a dynamic thing. It is not static. It is fluid. So social change has two stages, reformative and transformative. Reformative is whatever is with you, change it. But transformative is total change. But what I see, the relationship between Kalinga and these Southeast Asia countries, it is not reformative, it is transformative as well. So it is reformative and transformative, let us call it, because there are certain things which I must cite. But all said and done, this is the question of influence. Now, friends, influence from a socio-cultural perspective. In society, influence is not a single simple phenomenon, rather several influences coexist, coalesce, combine, and clash. There are also always degrees and kinds of influence: creative, imitative, assimilated, and external, strong and weak. Finally, all issues related to influence or reception can be seen as linked with various socio-cultural ones, having a bearing on culture which is highly dynamic and fluid. So whenever the Kalinga Sadhavats might have gone there, there must be the scope for interaction, and there must be the scope for mutual love, mutual attraction, leading to all these, cultural exchange and taking up things from the outside world. So, yeah. Next. So what is so special about the interaction between Kalinga and Southeast Asia? Trade was a facilitator. Trade as a facilitator. But remember, it was based on love and mutual admiration. No compulsion, no coercion, no proselytization. No Indian or nobody from Kalinga went there to, spread Hinduism. No proselytization, no force. It is just mutual love and admiration. You love me, I will love you. Mutual love and admiration. There are limited evidence of annexation or colonization. There was no question of colonization at all. And hardly one or two kings, that is Shailendra dynasty and the other one Srivijaya dynasty, they are from this side. But again, they remained a part of it. So they identified with the same setting. So no annexation, no colonization. Settlement was an ongoing process. Many Brahmins rushed in initially. Brahmins settled there. Because the kings there, they thought that these Rajpurohits, they are called priestly class in the court. They are the right people to influence the common populace, the milieu. So Brahmins, and they were scholars, they were pandits. Whatever they tell, the common people, they accept. And they were, most of the time, they were telling the kings as God sent. They were as God sent. And this is how they were authenticating the king's positions. So settlement was an ongoing process. Fusion of the great tradition and little tradition. As you know, there are two traditions, and if at all we'll take the Indian tradition as a great tradition, and whatever the local tradition, little tradition was there, it was not a question of class, it was a question of mutual acceptance. Next. I'll speak only on 3 points. One is language and literature. Then we'll talk about folk beliefs, practices, and folklore. And finally, religion, mythology, and festivals. So language and literature. In 2006, Sheldon Pollock, he wrote a book. The title of the book was The Language of Gods in the World of Men. And therein he coined the term Sanskrit cosmopolis. That means Sanskrit language as the unifying element comparable with Latin Europe. As you would find in the Middle Ages, that Latin language that unified the whole of Europe. But in Southeast Asia, actually Sanskrit, the basic Sanskrit, it unified. And therefore he coined a term Sanskrit cosmopolis. Loan words from Sanskrit. That is many loan words. I mean, the local language was there, but Sanskrit was the unifying force. They have taken number of words from Sanskrit. That is in Austronesian languages, Thai, Lao, traditional Malay, modern Indonesia, language of Philippines. The example is Bacha, means language in general. B-H-A-C-A-A, Bacha, that means language in general. But in Malaya, it is Bhasa, B-A-H-A-S-A, in Malaya, Indonesia, and Tausug. Basa in Javanese and Balinese. Phasa in Thai and Lao. Phasa, am I correct? Phasa. Then Bhasha in Burmese and Piesha in Khmer. You see, the same word with different nuances, different spellings, and different pronunciation. And the unifying thing is the language of gods, that is Sanskrit. So, next. There are many toponyms. What is toponym? Toponym is a name created based on another place or another reality. Suvarnabhumi, the land of gold. Thailand Suvarnabhumi airport. Suvarnabhumi, the land, that is Sanskrit word. But your airport is Suvarnabhumi airport. Indonesian Madura, that is our Mathura. Sarayu river near Ajodhya. Kalinga, see the spelling. And Kling also, you are telling Kling. Indragiri Hulu, river of Indra. And Indragiri Hilir, mountain of Indra. Siam is city of...
Respected Professor Amir Kumar Patnaik, my teacher, respected Professor Misra, Professor Nando, Professor Padi, my friends on the dais, and all the invited delegates, students, media persons. It is always risky to speak at the last, even for 5 minutes. Very difficult to attract, keep the audience attached to you. But as the president or the chairman of the session, I have to speak. I will not repeat what is being told and retold several times, and today also. What I found from all the deliberations of my presenters, they more or less limited themselves to 3 different but very much important aspects of our maritime history. One is migration, the second one is trade, and the third one is regio-cultural aspects. All the talks are based on these 3. So what they have told, that is already known to all of us because of these days' skull-boring deliberations. I am a student of medieval Indian history and my interest is on medieval studies. I did a little bit of research on maritime history of medieval India, but that goes to the 15th century, 16th century. But here the deliberations are of ancient period. I think if you go to the sources which the presenters use today, they more or less restrict themselves between maybe 6th, 7th century BC to 6th or 7th century CE. That's almost nearly 1,000 years. And all their materials, their conclusions, the study of their materials and their conclusions are restricted to certain sources. So the discussions are premised on mostly classical and secular texts, archaeological findings, sculptural representations, foreign accounts, or a little bit of inscriptions. So these are the main sources. They have referred to a good number of ports of Kalinga and nations, some says Java, Sumatra, Borneo, or whatever names they utter about Southeast Asia. These were ports of the cities, port cities. I cannot say because these scholars can only certify the nature of their commercial towns, and cities are the port towns. So whatever we see about Kalinga or eastern coast of Indian ports, there is a big difference when we come to the medieval period. I believe in a continuity of our maritime history. I do not believe in the breakup of the maritime history at any point of time because culture evolves. So we have come through a kind of evolution and therefore we cannot compartmentalize the periods and say that there was nothing happening. Such a situation came when the modern researchers, particularly R.S. Sharma, wrote Urban Decay in India. So he was referring to the early medieval period. We can divide the whole medieval period of Indian history into early medieval and late medieval. So early medieval period says 600 CE to 13th, 14th century. He had built up one theory, urban decay. If you study him, he very categorically and succinctly presents that there was urban decay, and one of the major causes was the absence of seaborne commerce or foreign trade. Because of that, because of the urban decay, there had been absence of our seaborne commerce. I am a person, I do not subscribe to this type of a view or a kind of model which he presented to us, and many of us accepted it. The decline of northern Indian states, a very powerful nationalized state, and fragmentation of the states and emergence of small states are two different aspects of our history. In one context, Sharma and others say that major states after Harshavardhan broke into pieces throughout the country, whereas in the context of Odisha or Kalinga, from minor kingdoms, we emerged into a major kingdom. So ours is a major kingdom. By the time the Somavanshis came into power, and followed by the Gangavanshis and then the Gajapatis, so we were very powerful in eastern India. Now the question arises, what happened to Kalinga in our own sources, indigenous sources? The indigenous sources were simply sculptural presentations or remnants, and one particular aspect of our sources, that is inscriptions. Odisha was very much famous for having so many inscriptions during that particular period, 1600 to 1200 or 1300. what happened to any kind of reference to this maritime trade, maritime activities, cultural linkages of Odisha with Southeast Asia? We do not have. Odia as a language or a developed literature comes to the 13th, 14th century AD. We didn't have a language like Odia. I do not know whether all the people of Kalinga were talking in Sanskrit. I don't believe in that. Or something else was there. Something was there, definitely. People were interacting. But where we get a reference to such type of activities, and what happened, we don't get anything during that period. Does it mean that our contact with the world, contact with particularly Southeast Asia, came to an end? This only can be answered by the sources of this particular period, 600 to 1300 or 1400, in Southeast Asia only, or in any other part of the world. So if you study, get the materials translated into English and try to incorporate with our own history, then only you will come to establish where we stopped and where the relationship continued. I believe in continuity, even in the absence of sources. Our sources are only sculptural presentations of our early medieval period. Beyond that, we don't have anything. So during this period, whether the old ports, which had shipbuilding capacities, the facilities, the other facilities which are required for propelling our ships across the seas, high seas with high risks. So these things were there or not, we cannot question, because we do not have sources to document for this particular period. And everybody has come to the conclusion that because of the siltation process, because of the change of rivers, because of change in the confluence points, because of the change of commercial cities and towns, so there was decline of ancient Kalingan ports. But how the people were managing their commercial seaborne trade and commerce and the cultural exchanges with Southeast Asia, this remains still a big question mark. But we have to be presumptory in nature in deriving conclusions. We have to only presume that it existed on the basis of our own literature, which flourished in the 13th, 14th century. Please read all the Vrata-kathas, all the osas. Ladies are there, they must be performing some osas and vratas, where prominently the sadhavas figure. Sadhava is a Sanskrit term. Is it a Sanskrit term? It is a Odia term. Everyone referred to. Professor Patnaik referred to sadhavas, all his presenters refer to sadhavas. Sadhavas, if it is a merchant community, then what is the maritime community? Maritime community does not necessarily mean the sadhavas. Or shall we say the sadhavas were also the experts for propelling the ships across the seas, for seaborne trade and commerce, for establishing, for enriching our cultural linkages? It is again a question mark. Sometimes we say the coastal communities not belonging to a particular caste, the caste affiliation is not there. So it is a community affiliation. So there were shipbuilders, there were mariners, the pilots who were propelling the ships across the seas, and there were also the traders who were conducting the trade, and there were also monks who were propagating the religion, or the culture, whatever you will say. One thing I always try to understand, which tradition of ours we continued to the later period, to the medieval period, or even to the modern period. Ports could not exist. When it came into being, when it passed, when it got lost its importance, we do not know. When we come to 15th century, when the Portuguese came in 1498, then came to the eastern coast of India, and Gajapati king granted them permission. They established their commercial town, their commercial establishment in settlement in Pipli first, then Baleshwar, then Tamluk, then Chittagong, Dhaka, all these things you know very well. And they commanded the seashore, eastern coast of India, and established a very powerful commercial link with Southeast Asia for more than a century, unless and until they were challenged by the Dutch, the English, and a little later by the French and the Danes. So when we come to this medieval period, what we see, till that time we didn't have any sources. I'm telling of the early medieval period. When they came, suddenly we get a lot of sources. These are the factory records, the correspondences, all the transactions between Odisha or India with mother country, whether you talk of Portuguese Lisbon or English London, whatever you say. So these records are all foreign to us. These were written in different foreign languages also. Then what happened to us? Why it is not very powerfully or clearly documented in our original sources? In Odia sources we don't have, except these folklore you are talking about, except some imaginative things, some traditions, some myths. So these are not the real sources of historical writing. So these are, in the context of real historical sources, it is something different. So these are mostly, again, presumptory. Now the question arises, where to locate our own history? See, the commercial ports and commercial towns were no more the same ones which were existing thousands of years back. So we have Baleshwar, we have Pipli, we have Hizli, we have Ganjam, we have Jingeli coast, so that is from Chilka Lake up to Godavari. So these are new ports which emerged and having international reputation. If you read the maritime history of 15th, 16th, 17th century, so 16th, 17th, and 18th century, we get enough materials. So far that articles of trade are concerned, more or less it remains the same. More or less it remains the same. If in the ancient period, paddy or rice could be used for balancing the ship, for sailing across the seas. So in the British records, in the factory records, in the travel accounts, we also see from Sri Lanka and other places, elephants were loaded in the ships and coming to the Odisha coast. References are there. It is documented. So they must be balancing that, taking rice, always trade and commerce depended on surplus and deficit. So we are the surplus, we have the surplus of articles, and those are the deficit areas in respect of certain particular articles of trade. So this way the changes were going on, the trade and commerce were going on. And the Europeans, they introduced another element, that is monetization of the economy, rural economy. So that was very much important. They were getting reals of aid, and they were getting some sophisticated articles, luxury articles, and they were exchanging. They particularly the Europeans in the later medieval period, they connected again South Kalinga with Southeast Asia. The lost glory got revived. If there was a break of the cultural exchanges in the early medieval period, if there was no break of cultural exchanges, then you can only imagine, you can only presume that we had a very powerful trade and commercial link, and we were getting enough wealth, and must be. The Somavanshi rulers and the Gangavanshi rulers, they will build up such a big empire. They were not getting entire money only by waging wars, but through booty. So they must be having, and also there was no expansion of the cultivation in those days. It became a later period that they became very much rich. So the richness must be also from either regional trade, provincial trade, or seaborne trade. So this is to be again proved. And therefore I say the certain things were continuing. This climate. Climate never changed overnight. So the mariners used the traditional technologies to sail their ships across the seas. So these things were continuing. Articles of trade cannot change totally because the production areas and distribution areas, exchange areas, the commercial geography remains almost the same. So what was new to us, which was different from the early traditions of cultural exchange, that has to be located. And I have one suggestion for this, that is, we are using the sources of the period before 6th, 7th century AD. So I would request our scholars in Southeast Asia, they should use their local languages. They should pinpoint their sources which speak about the trade and commerce, the cultural links, the exchange of ideas of that particular period with Kalinga. That part is completely missing in our discourses. I think I am right, maybe I'm wrong because I have not read everything. So this part, if can be worked out, I would request Professor Padhi, Upendra Padhi also to focus on locating the sources where Kalinga is reflected. We have located sources where Kalinga is reflected in Southeast Asia. Kalingan culture in Southeast Asia. But the reverse is not taken care of. So I would sincerely request all my friends, those who are doing research, if we didn't have Odia language, I don't think Sanskrit was very powerful in Southeast Asia. Everybody was understanding Sanskrit. They were talking in Sanskrit. They were doing it, all the epics, Mahabharata and Ramayana, they were written in Sanskrit, and they studied Sanskrit. And there are limitations. There are limitations to all regions. There are regional specific situations which we must try to understand. Then only our research will be complete. We can, for modern period, you know, a lot of technologies have come, we are having, so that is different. But to establish a continued history, maritime history of Kalinga with Southeast Asia, with South Asia, with Europe, with Africa, just by taking a few examples, we cannot justify our claim. We cannot justify our own linkages. So rightly pointed out by somebody that we had also something from them, so that is not properly integrated with our history. So if we can do that by way of discussions, by way of cultural exchanges, by way of studying other languages, then it will be very fruitful for us. So we will reach the goal. With these words, I thank Professor Padhi, Professor Nanda, for giving me this opportunity. I have spoken out of my random thoughts. Whether you accept it or you reject it, but I have presented. Thank you very much for giving me the patient hearing. I wanted to speak for 10 to 12 minutes. I am completing this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to call upon Dr. Chandi Prasad Nanda, sir, to felicitate the chairperson as well as the speakers.